Well, hello there, and welcome back to the latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, today I feel very privileged to have a very special guest to help me. Now, when it comes to dating, I coach many women, and they all tell me exactly the same thing. They're so used to having maybe high powered jobs and interacting with guys that when it comes to their romantic relationships, they find it really hard to balance their masculine, feminine energy. So today I'd love to welcome you all to a very special guest called Madelyn Moon. Now, Madelyn, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is a real pleasure. Now, I know we've spoken before briefly through social media about what you do and how to get you on here. And I've been so keen to have you on because it's such an important issue people have when it comes to relationships. But before we cover that, can you just tell everyone that's listening who doesn't know who you are about what you do and sort of areas that you coach?
Yes. So, I am a feminine and masculine embodiment teacher and a writer and a coach. And I support men and women in harmonizing these beautiful energies that we call masculine and feminine. And one of the things I aim to do is clear out some of the BS I think that floats about in our social media about what feminine means, what masculine means, because I don't think it means what many of us first think that it does on the surface level. It's much more deeper and it's a very spiritual practice actually. And it requires a lot of embodiment. It's not something that you can shift into from thinking about it or, quite honestly, even reading books. It's like the more you are in your body and you're feeling your senses, the more you're touching base with what the feminine is for you and what the masculine is for you, which I'm sure we'll get into today.
Yeah, because people don't really realize this that everyone's got both energies, haven't they? It's not
Oh,
just that
yeah.
men are masculine and women are feminine.
Oh, no, not at all, not at all, not at all, not at all. Yeah, that's one of the misconceptions. It is, interestingly, the feminine energy is typically, if we were to have it be manifested in physical form, it would look like a female, and the same thing with the masculine, it would look like the masculine. And I say that because the feminine energy is a lot around let me break this simply down because it'll help with the thing I'm talking about with the bodies, that the feminine is energy. Literally, the feminine is energy. It's anything in motion. It's not the calm stillness of meditation or yoga. That's not the feminine, which a lot of people think it is. It's like, oh, I'm in my feminine, I'm doing yoga today. Actually, that's quite masculine because it has structure. So anything that is masculine is structure or consciousness. So it is it is boundaries, it is borders, it is more linear, and it is actually more quiet. The masculine is not the loud parts of us, it's the quiet parts of us, the parts of us that can sit in silence and be still, like a calm warrior before battle, like in his zone, in his element. Before he goes into the chaos, he has to breathe deep, he has to meditate, he has to be confident in who he is. Whereas the feminine is more like ecstatic, it's movement, it's energy, it's the water that flows through the riverbed. So the masculine's more of that riverbed, the structure, and then the water flowing freely through it is more of the feminine. So um, when I say that the physical manifestation of the feminine is typically woman, it's because it's multi-tiered. One of the reasons is because women have this ingrained intuitive wisdom. It is very primal, and it also is activated through movement, through embodiment, through the senses, through feeling. We have such a impeccable ability to feel pleasure in our body because we are made so sensitive. And sensitivity is energy, right? It's like
Hmm.
all the atoms vibrating so quickly. We feel invigorated and alive. And women have a closer access to that, to feeling pleasure, to feeling movement, to feeling ecstatic or angry or like impulsive or up and down and chaos. Like yesterday, my mood was so different than today. Nothing's ever linear. Everything's always wild and chaotic, like a fire. Whereas typically for the masculine, like there is not, I wouldn't say a calmness, but in the masculine, even the way that a lot of men's brains work, it is quite linear. It's point A to point B. I'm not saying everybody, but oftentimes it is. It's A to B, and there's a drive for purpose. There's a drive for the thing, the mission. Even when men are going on dates and they're quote vetting who they're dating, what do I see us as? Where do I think we're going? Unless it's a feminine man. And if it's a feminine man, then he's really in the feels. How do I feel with this woman? Do I feel like I want more with her? And that's very often common as well. I've dated many very feminine men, and I mean that in an energetic way. Like their energy is very alive and naturey, and they have their pleasure at the top of their rankings of importance. And then there's very masculine minded women where they don't have, they maybe have cut off their connection to pleasure and to energy and to their moods shifting, because that's, well, the world that we've been raised in is a world where we are not encouraged to listen to our different moods and go with the energetics. As crazy as they may seem, we're typically taught from being children to have one mood and to let it make sense and to follow a linear path. And that's simply not the way many women are built to work.
So how would you help somebody in that situation who wants to become more comfortable with who they are and energies that they're giving out?
Um, I hope to be more comfortable in who they are. Well, it's a process of listening. It's a step one is listening, because your body's already talking. She's already asking for certain things. And a lot of times that talking may feel like anxiety or even depression. It's like, I really think that step one is simply the undoing of what we've been taught. For men, the undoing of being taught to always appear strong or to always appear masculine in that old archaic way of like bring home the bacon, constantly climb the ladder, don't feel your feelings. That's a process of undoing all of that, of really stripping away the archaic, traumatic layers that have been piled on man after man after man in your lineage, and really coming into your own emotion to feel what it is that you feel, and to feel your pain and your grief and your sadness and your longing for love. And it's really on both ends. I think it's a lot of undoing around the wounds on the feminine. There are certainly wounds around the masculine, but men really, this has been a great era for men welcoming in their feminine again, their softness, and for women as well, because we've all been raised with the belief that we're not supposed to be feeling all the different emotions, or unless we'll be called, quote, crazy. And so for women, I would also do a process of undoing, of really looking at the maybe ancestral trauma that's been passed down around shame for sexuality, shame for feeling emotions, shame for pleasure, because there's a lot of that, and gently welcoming it back in, not trying to love it immediately, not trying to like all of a sudden have tons of self pleasure practices and overwhelm yourself with senses and love and like full confidence, but rather peeling the layers back with ease and looking at some of the places where you've been shaming yourself for being too emotional or too easy to too quick to love someone, or too quote indulgent. Like there's just so much too xxness going on, and the process would be stripping away where you feel that you're too much, and swooping in to basically mother yourself on loving those pieces about you, loving your connection to spirit, loving your too muchness, loving your ability to feel pleasure, loving your crazy.
That sounds absolutely amazing. If someone's able to do that, it could be a very, very powerful thing. But I think that men in particular, as you touched upon just now, they really do struggle to show their emotions, particularly when it comes to relationships, because we're told that we shouldn't do that. It's inappropriate. We shouldn't cry. We shouldn't do this. But I think like you said, men are becoming more open to this. Men are becoming more vulnerable, and they are doing this. But there's still that fear deep down they're going to be judged by people. Do you come across that a lot?
Um, yes. I work mostly with women, but I do know this is certainly a very big thing for men, and that's why I think all men should be in men's groups. I mean, there's so many men's groups now, and they're all virtual as well now.
Yeah.
So I would like, I don't think it's, I think women will, as a, mm, this is interesting. This dynamic is always quite fascinating because we as women are inherent nurturers. Maybe we're not all, we all don't have an easy access to the part of us that can nurture, because many of us were raised with parents who didn't nurture us. So it's a process for women to learn how to nurture themselves too.
Mm.
But many women have that instinct to nurture. So men, I've found this interesting space where men are afraid of revealing their emotions. And part of where we're going in the future, starting now, is that men and women can bond in their vulnerability without staying in that place of bonding in vulnerability and not having polarity. So when I say that, I mean, we don't want to have the mother, like, we don't want her, the girlfriend, to turn into the mother, which is what happens very, very often. And then men are like throwing their hands up because they're like, wait, I thought I was supposed to be vulnerable. Like, and now you're shaming me for it. And she might accidentally shame him for it, but at the heart of her, she's not meaning to shame. She just doesn't want to be his mom because there's no sex in that. There's no polarity in that. No one wants to pounce on each other in that. So it's a very crucial skill. There's a few things here. One of the skills is, yeah, we want to hold space for each other. Him hold space for her grief and her sadness and her truth and her fears and insecurities, and her hold space for him and his fears and his insecurities and his emotions. We want to be able to love each other in those very tender places, but also have the skill to move out of that. Because there's a time and a place to go deep into those feels. And then having the skill set to know how to um, what's the word, shift into the erotic state. Wow, what a power couple when you can go from that place to then go into feminine and masculine energetics where she's in the feminine and maybe he's in the masculine. And then you create that sexual tension again. And then maybe the next day you go back into a tender space. And then that evening you switch those poles and you go back into polarity. We want to have it all. We can have it all too. But in order for both the man and the woman, or any couple that we're talking, we're kind of using these terms of he and she, but any couple, it does not matter what kind of relationship that you're in. This works for everyone. But if we have this, if we have the he and the she, we want them to also be in their groups. We want him to be in a men's group, and we want her to be in a woman's group, because if we keep going down this path of I got to carry everything together, I've got to do everything myself, we accidentally do end up demanding that our partner be everything. So I'm just really anchoring in this idea of having a stronger support system, because we can't be agile in the energies that we bring to our partner if we demand them to be everything. We don't have a support group.
That's such an important thing to remember, because I think women tend to have larger social circles and groups of family and friends that they do talk to, but men tend to be more lone wolves and don't want to tell their male friends or family what they're going through. So
Mm.
I think support groups are absolutely important. I know a few over here in the UK. I know a great coach that runs them, and I must get him on my podcast soon. I've done his. And it's so important, just talking through what's going on and being supported. That would really help you. Something else that popped into my mind when you were saying that as well is that I've discovered, when it comes to dating, is that many women tell me that they think the men will find them intimidating if they are successful in their lives, if they've achieved a lot, if they've got a great job. And my normal advice to that is, well, that's fantastic. You just eliminated the wrong sort of person. But maybe sometimes if they were displaying more maybe feminine energy rather than masculine, it would help them. So I'd love to ask your opinion on that.
The answer to that for me is yes, maybe. Yes, maybe. You know, I am I'm so in my feminine now where I'm like really I get so lost into the rhythm of music and the taste of strawberries and all my pleasure, and I have such a strong spiritual practice where I consider God to be my beloved. And I also make six figures and I also am a coach and holding space for people. So I've got both of these things. And yet, still, it's the thing about this work is that when you have all the things, when you're kicking butt in your passions and your business, but you also know how to surrender and be soft and nurturing and mother like and maiden like and like seductress like, when you have so much of you available, when you've done all this interpersonal work and you've worked on your shame and you've welcomed in all these parts of you, you can still be incredibly intimidating because you're not one flavor. And I've had an experience like this recently where I brought my fullness to somebody, a partner. I brought my my holy woman and my sacred whore energy. Like I brought all of it. Of I'm a very spiritual practitioner who has a business mindset, but then I'm also really freaky. Like I got all these different things and I brought that to someone who it's just not what they want. You know, it's not what they want, but it's what I want. So it's yes, if we're talking in the lens of dating, that can absolutely help if if you're not all business minded and like structured, like definitely bring in more of the softness. It doesn't guarantee you a man though. It doesn't guarantee anything. What it guarantees you is you. It guarantees that you will not abandon yourself. And that's the greatest gift of all is you being your greatest partner, because at the end of the day you are your greatest partner. And I'm not saying you're going to end up alone. I'm just saying that when you have the full spectrum of you, your life is so much more magical and so much more rich. And you can discover, you know, person to person that you date, what you may realize that you do outgrow the person who has one kind of identity. And you do want someone that's done as much work as you have. But the key here is to do the work. You know, if you want to get to that place, you go dive into feminine embodiment groups and learn how to get back in touch with your pleasure and work on your own sexual shame and love all the different pieces that make you so full and have that full spectrum of the feminine and the masculine available within you.
I have to say, you do come across as someone so together and so chill, and someone that's obviously done a huge amount of work on herself over time. And it's quite mind blowing in that sense because I can't really describe it. I'm one that just talks and talks, and you're saying so much that makes so much sense. So I take it how long has it taken you to get to this stage where you are?
Mm. Well, I'm 29 years old, so probably about that that length of time so far. But I remember discovering the feminine and masculine verbiage about 5 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, I know what this means. Ah, yeah, feminine is softness, masculine is hustle." Like I was one of those people who thought that's what it was, and it's not. Feminine is like a raging river. It's not necessarily soft, and masculine definitely doesn't mean hustle. Um, that's more of the toxic masculine, really, is the hustle energy. And so then I went in to do some intensive embodiment work. And that's really where the shift happened, is where I got out of the books and I went into live workshops and intensives with teachers who really know how to hold tight containers. And I did work around my sexual taboos. And a taboo is the fantasies and taboos are very different. Fantasies are like yummy fun ideas that you want to experiment with, and taboos are they have to have an element of shame with it. A taboo isn't a taboo unless there's some kind of element of societal or cultural or religious shame, and and it's paired with sex. Like that's what makes it a taboo. And so I went into these intensives where you really look at what do I have shame around, and what are my taboos and how does that relate to my real life. And it's really interesting work. It shows you a lot around what is the thing in your walking life that controls you the most, because that's like anything that has to do with shame is the heart of what's steering the show, really. And anything that is combined with sex and shame is like, wow, that's really powerful stuff. And going into doing, I would say, about 3 years of this kind of workshop work. And I'm not saying it was like having sex with these taboos to heal them. It's more of like dialoguing and embodiment and moving this kind of grief and fear through your body, sometimes through dance, sometimes through crying, sometimes through becoming like a tiger and roaring. It's like really vulnerable kind of work that takes you to some weird places. And that is the work that's shifted everything for me, is actually embodying myself into feminine and masculine, and fear and love and loss, and writing. I'm a writer, so spending the last few years with myself a lot. I've had plenty of partners in the last few years, but I've really been I wouldn't say alone, but I've been in my own. I'm a very heady person. So like the embodiment piece is so important for me to get out of the head and into the body and feel what I'm feeling.
So, what would you look for in a partner yourself?
That's a nice question. Um I look for someone. I realize now how important open-mindedness is, and that sounds like kind of cliche, but it's really important because I'm a very out there person at times, and I forget that because when you stay in the circles that you're in, and everyone's kind of like you. And I forgot that not everyone considers God to be their boyfriend, and like not everyone writes love letters to the divine. And like I I want someone who cherishes that about me, and they don't have to be on the same very spiritual path that I am on, but someone who has a lot of love for life, zest for life, passion, and is incredibly ambitious. I really love that ambition. And ironically, I don't really care if they know anything about feminine and masculine energetics. In fact, I really don't want them to, because I want to bring my feminine, because when I bring my feminine into the relationship, he naturally will go into the masculine or not, and I'll quickly know, oh, this isn't a very good fit. So I do love a man who has a natural instinct to protect and to provide, even though he knows he doesn't need to with me. And there's something really beautiful about that. I read a quote once that was like, go find a woman who doesn't need protection and then go protect her. And I really love that. I love that idea of me being really full into who I am, and finding someone who sees that in me and then loves that so much in me that they want to protect me, and show up and be consistent and be a forever seeker. I'm a forever seeker, and I want a forever seeker. And last but not least, someone playful. I love playfulness and humor, and I think everyone does. But it's really important when you do so much like spiritual work. You have to have the other side. You have to know how to turn it off, and just to laugh and like have a nice, fun, chill night.
Being playful is something I teach people all the time because that's part of flirting, and people
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to be playful. Back to these
Mm-hmm.
taboos the way they were before. I think they're doing something wrong, and it's an important part. But I think bringing the world needs to be more playful, particularly right now, and have
Mm-hmm.
more fun generally. I read something the other day. I don't really understand this. What is the divine feminine and what is the divine masculine?
Mm.
Can you explain
Well,
that to
to
me? I generally don't know what that means. So,
Well, to me, it's the same that I was saying earlier. And this is different for everyone. For some people, divine feminine, they would say it is divine mother. It is divine love. It is divine nourishment, nurturing. It is also sometimes a little bit merciless, like a tsunami or water. Like the ocean can be very merciless at times. And the divine feminine can be that dichotomy of destroyer and creator. you know I'll give you life and I'll take it away. That's like the ocean, and it's merciless, but it's how nature works. And the divine masculine is this divine, like, father. It's divine leadership, it's divine container and holding. And um it's also very motherly, though. The actual divine masculine is very very motherly in that he is willing to take out his sacred sword and slash through bullshit. Slash through the bullshit, even if you're the one being the bullshit. If you're bringing, like, if a woman is bringing her petty energy and she's closing her heart and being passive aggressive, the divine masculine is the energy that's going to say, "Nuh-uh, give me your truth. Don't be passive aggressive. Tell me what's actually bothering you. I've got you." And that's what a father would do. Is like, "Nuh-uh, you're not going to be a brat. Tell me what's going on. Like, give it to me. Give me your full heart. I demand it." And so that is, I mean, that's what the divine feminine and masculine are to me. And I believe, again, like, they are the same. You know, these words make separation, but they are the same thing in the end. They feed into each other. And as we probably have all heard before and read in our books, it always equals unconditional love. It's unconditional love in two different forms, in our two different divine parents, the two different divine parents that are always within ourselves. We are our greatest divine parents. In fact, it's that truth right there that's going to lead us to finally healing the trauma our actual parents did. Because our actual parents provided us plenty of trauma, and their parents provided plenty of trauma to them. And the only way we finally move out of that is to stop looking at our parents on earth to show us the way. And we realize that it's the divinity, it's our divine parents that live within us that know the truth, our intuition, our own leadership, our own ability to set boundaries, even if they feel a little bit weird. Because I know a lot of women struggle with that, of actually listening to themselves when something doesn't feel right and something's a no. The little voice within you that goes, "No, that doesn't feel right," that's the divine. The little voice within you that says, "Yes, go that direction," that's the divine.
The gut instinct.
Gut instinct and an inner knowing. And an inner knowing when the rest of the world says you're weird, it's the inner knowing that says, actually, you're love. And maybe it's weird too, but you're love. You know, yeah.
Yeah. What would somebody do who is completely new to this and wants to start taking action right now to become more in touch with their feminine energy? What would they do right this second? What could they do? Is it breath work? Is it music, dancing? What would you recommend?
I would say close your eyes and bring your fingertips to your face ever, ever, ever so slowly, and just see how slow you can move them across your jawline. It's all about the body. So
Yeah.
it's like, if you want to be in your feminine, I know that sounds kind of weird. If you want to be in your feminine, though, it's about moving slower because we move so fast. So see how intimately you can touch your own skin, how you can feel the way you touch your skin every step of the way, and how delicious that slowness can feel. And if you want to add a second layer as you touch your own skin, I mean, you can touch anywhere, your thighs, your neck, your face. Also, bring your breath into your very lower belly. Most of us want to breathe shallowly in our chest, like this, really up here, but that is in the upper portion of the body. That's the chest. It's very shallow, and that's we want to bring some weight, some earth, some like grounding into ourselves, embodiment. We want to go deeper into the roots. So breathe from your lower belly. And in that moment, if you're touching your skin ever so delicately and you're feeling intimate with your own body and you're breathing into the lower half of your body, you're both in the feminine and the masculine at the same time. Your belly is being a container for breath. You're actually feeling the embodiment of being a container, the masculine. And then you're feeling your energy, you're feeling your skin, you're feeling intimate, and you're feeling pleasure. So that's a way that you don't even do anything, but yet you're doing everything.
That sounds incredible. I hope people will try that out. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try and stroke my chin as slowly as possible, but it's not quite as easy. Yeah, that's how you do it. Okay. I've got too much stubble going on to do that.
Well, you go really slow with the stubble and see if even with the stubble, you're like, oh, that's life. Life is stubble. And how can I still let it feel good and allow
Yeah.
myself to feel good with the stubble of life?
Stubble of life. Unfortunately, I have to end it on that note. Our time is up. It's a great note. Stubble of life. That'll be my next podcast. James Priest, Stubble of life. But Madelyn, it's an absolute pleasure having you here. I could really genuinely talk to you and listen to you for hours and hours and hours. I feel very calmed and very relaxed now, which is good because it's quite late here in the UK. And I think I'm just almost tranced out a little bit by this. And I'm going to play this back again in the morning. And I've genuinely learned so much. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your experiences and your advice.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a great day. And if you'd like to find out more about Madelyn's amazing website, you can go to www.maddiemoon.com. Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespriest.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.